Hey guys, quick life update from me. I just moved back to Hawaii, so this new set around me is kind of work in progress as I kind of get reestablished again. So say hi to Goofy behind me. But today I want to talk about something that is a really multi-year, kind of a decade-long opportunity when it comes to investing. And we all have this friend that occasionally tells us, I really wish I invested in Apple in 1995. And more recently, people say, I wish I invested in Bitcoin in 2013 and held on to today. So what I want to talk about today is kind of one of these I wish I invested moments and opportunities. I want to talk about the Metaverse. Metaverse, a word that many people heard for the first time when Facebook a few weeks ago announced that they would be renaming the company from Facebook to Meta Platforms, or Meta in short. But really, Metaverse has been here for a long time. And what's great about it is that it's completely investable and you can be part of it. So let's talk about it. So what is Metaverse? Let's spend a minute defining what Metaverse is, what people actually mean when they talk about Metaverse. And then we'll talk about the investment opportunity, how to actually make money on this theme that's really going to be here for years to come. So Metaverse. Metaverse is a word that's composed of two separate words. Meta, which in Greek means beyond, across, after, and universe. But really the best way to think about Metaverse is as the next iteration of the internet. When you think about the internet today, right? Imagine the internet was brought to life and rendered in 3D. Instead of having this two-dimensional interaction that we have today by looking at a screen, information comes back from the screen. Imagine you're able to step into this world, in a sort of a virtual world, into these interconnected 3D rendered communities where you're able to meet, work, and play. So this is all slightly theoretical, the way I kind of described it here, but let's talk about real-world applications. So really, Metaverse originally is really being pushed from the gaming industry. Gaming industry historically has been the industry where we have sufficiently powerful consoles and devices that are able to render these complex 3D worlds. But really the applications in real life world today are endless. You talk about real estate, where you're able to render real estate in 3D without even being present at the construction site or the building. You're talking about education, you're talking about the auto industry, you're talking about work from home. Think about how over the last 18 months we all sat at home and worked over Zoom, over email, over the phone. Imagine you had an opportunity to actually meet and interact with your colleagues, design products, look inside the products in a 3D environment that would work seamlessly without ever stepping out of your home. I'm not arguing here that this is where we want to head as a humanity. But the technology is heading that way, right? This is what the Metaverse is really doing for us. So now let's talk about the investment part. How can you actually benefit from investing in the Metaverse? And when I talk about investing, I always try to keep things very simple and kind of try to put them in a context, right? So if we look back at the last 40 years, when you think about the 80s and the 90s of the last century, that was all about the internet transformation of the economy. And a lot of us still remember the 90s, right? The dial-in modem, when you had to wait for the sound to finish to get online. The 2000 and the decade from 2010 was all about the mobile transformation, right? And when you look at the history of Facebook and read some interviews of Mark Zuckerberg, he will tell you that the fact that they focused on mobile so late, not until 2012 did they have a mobile application for Facebook. That was the biggest mistake the company made in the history of the company. So they almost missed the turn completely, and they don't want to miss it for the Metaverse. That's why they're focusing so heavily, and in fact renaming the company to Meta Platforms and just focus on Meta as a universe, as the future of the company. And so back to the example that I had at the very beginning of this video, right? When you look back at 1995 and say, I wish I invested in Apple. Well, some people invested in Apple, and some other people invested in Nokia or Samsung, and they did a lot worse than those that put money in Apple and held on, right? So ideally, the right strategy back then would have been to invest in a group of diversified internet space companies, and likely you would have done amazingly well. And this is what you want to do today with the Metaverse. You can bet your bottom dollar that there's not going to be one single company that will dominate the space. There's going to be a multitude of companies that will be part of this new world that is being built, this whole Metaverse. And there's a whole list of companies that will benefit massively from this. So what you really want to do is you want to invest in an ETF. And there is an ETF that launched at the end of June 2021, which is the Round Hill Ball Metaverse ETF, ticker META, Meta. It's already attracting a huge amount of assets. In fact, I looked yesterday when I was taking notes for this video, and the assets under management were $490 million. Today, after the close, they're $570 million. So we added $80 million overnight into this ETF. So when you look at the volumes, it's really picking up over the last several weeks. Now, the expense ratio on this ETF is 0.75%. So for each $10,000 you invest in this ETF, you will pay $75 in management fees to the company that's managing the ETF for you, right? Doing the selection, the rebalancing of the companies that are in the ETF. And when you look at the chart, the ETF is up about 20% over the last 6 weeks. So it's really beginning to take this turn higher as the investment world is focusing on the metaverse as an investment theme. Now, I'm putting this Bloomberg description page here that shows you the components of what's actually in this ETF. There's 43 companies, and it's really the best of the NASDAQ 100. So when you look right from the top, right, you have NVIDIA, you have Roblox, you have Microsoft, Unity Software, and Meta Platforms, formerly Facebook. But there's a ton of other companies in this ETF, from Amazon, Tencent, Apple, Snap, Coinbase, Activision Blizzard, Intel, Qualcomm, Walt Disney, Square, PayPal, really a who is who of the NASDAQ 100. But just a few words about maybe the top holders, right? When you think about NVIDIA, people look at NVIDIA as a semiconductor producer. And it's true that the GPU units are the gold standard of the industry. But NVIDIA is really investing heavily in artificial intelligence and machine learning. And when you talk to the CEO of NVIDIA, he tells you that Metaverse is going to be a lot bigger than the real world economy that we have today. Unity Software just announced a deal to buy the virtual studios behind Lord of the Rings and Avatar. So they're really heading in the right direction right there. Roblox, in a way, also, by the way, announced results this week. Again, amazing results, the stock much higher. But Roblox, in a way, already created their own internal version of the metaverse. And Facebook's leaving the traditional Facebook platform, Instagram and WhatsApp, really kind of behind and focusing and moving into a completely new direction. They're investing $12 billion a year into building new products and devices. So again, I think this ETF, this is really the first ETF that really specifically wants to track the metaverse. There's going to be other products like this. Like I said, I don't have any association with this ETF personally, but I think it's a great way to express this theme. That's really, when you think in the context of a long-term investing, not just day-to-day kind of day trading, but investing, this is going to be a great ETF and is going to perform amazingly well over the years to come. So now the real question is, should you just close your eyes, buy this ETF and stick it in your portfolio forever and just hope for the best? Look, I have two final points to say on this, on how to trade this ETF, right? One is kind of to set your expectations right, because a lot of the companies that are part of building the metaverse are simply not publicly traded yet. There's a lot of privately held companies that haven't IPO'd yet. They are not trading in the stock market, that are not going to be part of the ETF until they do, right? And when they finally IPO, hopefully they are included in the ETF. So that's kind of setting the expectations right. But from the point of view of when to buy it and how to buy it, right? A lot of these companies, when you look at NVIDIA and Microsoft, we're trading all-time highs. They've had an amazing run over the last really 18 months, right? From the bottom of April 2020 when COVID-19 hit the stock markets. And here we're at the kind of the very end, what seems to be at the very end of the bull run. So I would just say pick your levels wisely, right? My gut feeling is telling me that we are going to have a little bit of a correction, 10-15% into the year end, certainly by January 2022. There's a lot of issues in the market. We are extremely high in terms of valuations, in particular for these high growth companies. Inflation numbers are really high, persistently so. Interest rates are rising, which is not great for tech companies. And we have this issue again with the debt ceiling into the year end, right? And plus COVID cases are rising both in the US and Europe. So again, there's a lot of issues in the market. So I would just say, layer yourself into this ETF, pick your levels wisely. And if there is a pullback in the market, certainly use it to start building a position. Because like I said, throughout this whole video, this is a theme that is going to be here for the next 10 years. This is a theme you don't want to miss, and you don't want to be looking back, just like we are looking back at Apple or Bitcoin for some of us, and thinking, I should have bought back then. Anyway, thanks for hanging out today. Give a like to the video if you enjoyed this conversation, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and I'll see you soon.